Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, we're talking about Anthony Edwards' ascension into superstardom, Bilal Coulibaly being out for the season, and then we're going to do off-season previews for the Portland Trail Blazers and the Detroit Pistons. We might even talk a little bit of an NBA draft at the end, but now let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this gonna be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie.
Step and
But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up? Hey, it's the day before the best 4-day stretch of basketball of the year. And here's the thing, Sam, real quick. My 8th grade students are on a field trip tomorrow. So there is legitimately only an hour and a half window where I am not going to be able to fully focus on these games. So I'm excited.
That's amazing. I love that so much for you, Bryce. I couldn't be more excited for the NCAA tournament. Having said that, if you're here, if you're watching this video live, if you're watching it afterward, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button to the channel. It really helps grow the channel. It really helps grow the show over on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you're listening to this afterward on the podcast feed. It really helps. I don't know what our click-through rate is. Maybe Dave can give me those numbers at some point. Maybe we'll find out on the next episode. But I feel like there are not as many people that are subscribed to the channel that watch the channel. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. It really helps. Bryce, the topic that I just wanted to dive into above and beyond everything today was Anthony Edwards.
Yep.
Anthony Edwards has been unconscious recently. It feels like to me, every single time I watch an Anthony Edwards game, I'm blown away with just how much he continues to grow as a scorer, how much he continues to grow as an overall defender, how much he continues to just take things over every single time that I watch a game. Now, last night against Denver, the Timberwolves lose this game 115-112, right?
Yeah.
They hold Anthony Edwards scoreless in the fourth quarter. And we'll talk about that because I thought it was really interesting. I felt they loaded up really, really well against him. But the first 3 quarters were magnificent. They were absolutely staggering. They were stunning. They were incredible. The last few weeks for Anthony Edwards, it feels like there's a new highlight every night, whether it's him blocking a shot at the end of the game and hitting his face on the rim, or it's him dunking and dislocating a finger against John Collins and hitting John Collins in the face as he's doing this. Anthony Edwards is taking a real leap into superstardom, it feels like, even above and beyond what we've seen so far from this now 2-time All-Star.
Well, and it started this last summer, right? Coming out of the summer, I think a lot of people felt like he was on this path. And I don't want to say he had some sort of slow start to the season. It wasn't that by any means, but it seems like it's ramping up here at the end of the season. The thing with that loss to the Nuggets, Sam, is they started Kyle Anderson at center and then had to play Luka Garza 20 minutes at center against the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. And they were still there in large part to some other guys, but Anthony Edwards. Since the All-Star break, he's 6th in the NBA in points per game. He's 6th in fourth quarter points per game, shooting better than 50% from the field. I know the Nuggets were able to slow him down a little bit in the fourth quarter in that game, but in general, he has been amazing. And I'm excited to look at the film, talk about what makes him great. I assume on both ends of the floor. If not, I have some things I want to talk about defensively, even from that Nuggets game where he's holding teammates accountable. So I think it'll be a lot of fun and probably overdue us giving some of him his flowers.
Yeah, so I totally agree. I didn't grab anything defensive today because I really just kind of wanted to focus on the growth and the footwork offensively, because to me, that's kind of where it starts, and we'll kind of break it down. I'm glad you brought up the defense. We'll talk about the defense maybe after we get into the offense, but I think what's made Ant just so special recently has been the overall growth on offense. And I think that that's exactly where I want to go with this just to begin. Is you and I last week when we broke down Jalen Williams, we talked a lot about 3-level scoring, right? We talked a lot about how Jalen is able to, in the first 6 minutes of that game or whatever, get to the rim on a drive, get to his favored mid-range areas, knock down a catch and shoot three. I mean, we're going to see the same things here with Anthony Edwards as we dive into this to start, right? So this first clip here is literally first minute of the game. Jaden McDaniels sets like a little mini slip screen. And I just want to point out the patience for Anthony Edwards here. This is stuff where when he was in college, first year in the league, he took a lot of really inefficient shots. I think that honestly, Anthony Edwards probably would have shot this ball like here.
Yep.
I think he probably would have like hang dribbled and taken like a mid-range pull up, like right in this area, somewhere like that. Instead, he's patient. He's calm. He takes 3-4 dribbles, then goes step through against Michael Porter Jr., who's a bigger defender than he is. I love the way that they use screens in this game as well. I thought it was really intriguing just to look at. So they start with Nickeil Alexander-Walker here. He's going to set this little slip. And then watch like Kyle Anderson like kind of come through Kyle Anderson's going to come through and set what looks like a little flare here for Alexander Walker to come off. So Aaron Gordon can't really trap here.
Yep.
That's the issue. Like you can't really put two on Anthony Edwards here. That's why Aaron Gordon's eventually going to point and go, hey, Michael, I need you to take him. I need you to take him. He goes and turns around and goes. And then Ant just realizes he's got this matchup here. And the step through is absolutely sick.
He also scores this if Karl Anthony Towns is on the floor and Jokic has to give more respect. Like Jokic essentially hung out in the lane this whole game because he was guarding Kyle Anderson. Right there, Anthony Edwards does a sick in and out hesitation. Right there, he has Michael Porter Jr.'s hips all the way open. A little before that in a driving lane, but Jokic is standing in the lane. Right there, he gets him leaning. Like this is a layup, but Jokic is really able to commit. But what I love is then he stops, doesn't settle for a fadeaway. And then as Jokic has to get out of the lane eventually, right? Then he does this step through move and all the footwork stuff you want to get into.
Yeah. Again, this is just clear growth for Anthony Edwards. There's not another way to put this. Everybody's going to melt down about the dunks and the blocks. Sure. And look, he had a disgusting putback dunk in this game that we're about to get to. It's the footwork for me. The footwork is absolutely gross. It's the patience. It's the poise. And let's get to this next one here. They're going to set like a double pin down action here for Ant and get into just a little dribble handoff with Luka Garza. The Nuggets cut this thing off, do a great job with it. And then he's just going to get Kentavious Caldwell-Pope on skates with this sick crossover, and he's going to knock down just this little step back jumper.
I think this is the most impressive shot of the game for me, Sam, because watch KCP and MPJ and where they are at in relation to like his feet and his legs when he takes this shot.
I definitely want to point that out as well. I also want to point out, because you're going to see this on the next clip, look how high KCP is above the 3-point line here, defending Anthony Edwards. The next clip here, you're going to see there's an issue there, but look how high he is on this one. And I would imagine the next clip is an adjustment to what happened on this clip, right? So he gets this crossover between the legs, right? He drives, and look at just the ability to stop. Look at how split his legs are here.
Yep.
Like, that's not normal, like body mechanics for somebody who's this powerful and physical.
Real quick, Sam. So for anybody who's not watching on video, one, you should go over to YouTube and all the things Sam says, but he has one foot that is legitimately outside the 3-point line and the other foot is at the top of the free throw line circle. So like that is the distance that he is covering right now. And it's not just about the distance, it's about the explosion he's going to have out of this when he stops his momentum.
It's insane. He gets to this step back, double contest. Like you said, Bryce, you wanted to point out where KCP's feet are.
Look at both of them.
They're right there.
That's ridiculous. Like I know as somebody who took a lot of jump shots that somebody being in that space, because I couldn't do anything else, Sam, somebody being in that space whenever I elevated would bother me. It would affect me mentally. And Ant can feel it because you can see he does an awkward thing with his foot on the landing, and he still has the concentration to knock it down. This was crazy impressive.
Yeah, like Bryce, I'm assuming you could do this, right? Like this just full flexibility, with all this power and strength and coordination. This was you, right? Like getting to a step back.
So whenever I train kids, I teach this, like getting low and all of that stuff in very slow motion. And Sam, it's so sad. It's so sad after the workouts how sore I am. Like I'm about to rip a hamstring just stepping it off, let alone doing it full speed and then doing a step back off of it.
My goodness. Yeah, this is just disgusting for Ant. And then this next one here is literally the next possession down the court for the Timberwolves, right? The last one was at 8:35. This one's at 8:19, right? First quarter. Anthony Edwards going to come down. KCP,
Backs up.
look where his feet are now. His
Yep.
feet are below the 3-point line now because he recognizes, shit, I have Anthony Edwards coming. He can get a little bit downhill against me. Oh, by the way, he drilled a step back on me last time. I'm all the way below the 3-point line now. And then he just hits that pound dribble and just goes right up for it. Like just an absolutely sick player right now, Anthony Edwards. This next one here. This is a Nickeil Alexander-Walker or a Jaden McDaniels missed three. That might be Jaden in the corner. Missed three here with literally the next possession down the court. Or no, this is 2 minutes later. Misses the three. And you can just see I can just like imagine the way he's walking is just like purely gleeful here. He knows it's coming. He knows that nobody has gotten a body on him.
Yep.
Aaron Gordon just said, forget about it. This is about to be curtains and Anthony Edwards. The thing that's so impressive about this to me, his left arm is like over here. This is a one-handed catch.
Yep.
In traffic. Jokic's arm is right here, right? Like Jokic's arm is right there. He catches this one-handed.
Below the rim right now, or like at the rim. So he has to control it and then bring it back up over the rim.
Yeah. And he somehow finishes this. This is insane.
This
nice. Is truly insane to see somebody do this. Like, I just kind of want to watch it in full just to be able to get the full understanding of what we're looking at here. It's gross. It's so disgusting that happened. This next one here, Michael Porter throws a bad pass in transition, 3:32 of the first quarter. And now we've got Anthony Edwards in space and just, I mean.
This one is beautiful. I'm so glad you clipped these out, Sam, because with somebody like Anthony Edwards, people just fall, you said it already. They fall in love with the athleticism and they forget the nuance with his skill level. You don't do these things just because. This is work and preparation and putting in the time. He does another nice little in and out with his left hand here, but this step through stuff was so beautiful in this first quarter.
So he sees Aaron Gordon coming out at him. As soon as Aaron Gordon's momentum starts going toward him, he's like, I'm just going to in and out this guy. And I feel like I can get by him at any point once I do that. So in and outs him. Gordon actually does a pretty good job staying in front.
This was a really good job by Aaron Gordon.
And then it's just stringing dribble moves together. It's stringing moves off the bounce, right? Look at his head right here. This is what's crazy about Anthony Edwards' balance. His head is like going this way momentum-wise. He's putting that ball with his left hand through his legs up to his right hand right here. Able to, oh no, this is behind the back. But like the fact that he's able to get back to that behind the back is disgusting even. I don't understand how somebody is capable of like doing these things. Like he takes that extra dribble and then gets him behind the back. He goes behind the back to attack the front foot, right? Like you're always trying to attack front foot. Basically, nobody can get there to attack the front foot from this spot by going behind the back like this. This is what makes this so absurd. And he gets that extra separation. He's got Aaron Gordon dancing. Aaron Gordon is like a borderline all defense defender in the league. And he goes up and under to get there.
Well, the thing is, like, at a certain point, Aaron Gordon's like, I've just given so many efforts. Like, we talk about multiple efforts defensively. This is in pseudo transition. Gordon lunges at him, does a great job recovering. Now Ant makes a change of direction move with the behind the back right here. Gordon changes direction with him again. He's going to cut him off again, Sam. Ant looks like he's going to take the fadeaway jumper. And by that point, like, you have to imagine how like exhausted Gordon is on this possession from all those efforts. Whenever he goes to the fake fade away and step through, it's just over. Like, you can't continue to move your feet and stay in front.
It's completely sick. Completely sick. This is the next possession down the court. I believe 3 minutes left in the second quarter. Or no, this is second quarter now, not first quarter. So this is a quarter later. This is just power, right?
Yep.
KCP is an unbelievable defender. He's got help here with Nikola Jokic because they have Luka Garza on the court. He just sees this mini like crease here where he's like, okay, I can leverage here and I think I can get to the spot before Jokic can get there.
Yep.
And he gets there. He just powers through.
I was going to say,
the foul.
He's strong enough to do it. Balance.
Yeah. That's what's crazy about this. Just look, post position. They ran a lot of post ups for Anthony Edwards in this game. I thought that was pretty interesting. It felt like he had a strength advantage on KCP and on Jamal Murray at times. We'll talk about that in the second half, particularly. But the ability to just power up and go through these things is completely absurd. It's completely absurd. This next one here, a minute left in the second quarter now. He's got Aaron Gordon on him. Screen comes. KCP kind of shades toward the ball as if there's going to be two on the ball because he's guarding Monte Morris. Then Garza is going to come up for a screen here. And again, I want to point out the patience and the footwork compared to what Anthony Edwards used to be, right? So I think there's a chance, A, that Anthony Edwards might have just taken this empty side previously and tried to get like into all of this open space in order to just try and be an athlete, right? Because that's what he used to do. Instead, he's patient. He lets Monte Morris clear to the corner. He takes this ball screen instead from Luka Garza. And I think previously he takes this shot here. I think that this would have normally, like in past years, I think Anthony Edwards just rises up and takes this jumper from 18 feet. Probably makes it 43% of the time, something like that. I don't know what the exact number would be, but he probably makes it a decent amount of the time, right? Instead, he pump fakes, gets Jokic going backward to go and rebound, and then just takes this little leaning shot where, again, because his hang time is so sick, he's able to realign his body in midair and get to this little right-handed floater. Yeah, I mean, this is tough. This is really hard to guard.
So by year, 16 feet to the three-point line, Anthony Edwards, 28%, 36%, 35%. So you get inside of 15 feet. And as most people, like even this year, the difference between those two areas, inside and outside of 16 feet, inside of 16, 10 to 16, 43%, 16 feet to the three-point line, 34%. So you're looking at almost a 10% difference in those areas. The other thing you brought it up, if he goes sideline baseline here, he probably ends up getting double teamed by KCP and Aaron Gordon, as opposed to doing what he does, which is Jokic, knowing he's in drop, because that's what Jokic did the entire game in this game because of who the Timberwolves had. He also does a good job setting Aaron Gordon up here, comes off close hip to hip, not great, but I watch a lot of NBA players that are way worse at coming off hip to hip than this. And he is able to now attack Nikola Jokic instead of probably doubling or dribbling into a trap from Gordon and KCP if he goes to the baseline.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. He's just completely ridiculous right now. This next play here, I think, is going to get us into the second half. And what I want you guys to watch for in the second half here is they really went after Jamal Murray here in the third quarter. It felt like they set a lot of actions where the primary goal was to get Ant onto Jamal Murray as a player. And like, I think Jamal has turned into an okay defender. Like, he doesn't take anything off the court, in my opinion, defensively. He's not like a killer on defense, but he's pretty close to like a net neutral at this point. And he probably is a net neutral, to be honest. This one here, Conley's going to throw it back to Jamal. Conley, I think, recognizes that they've got 3 guys low here and that Jokic is kind of going backward. So Jokic can't go up to the level and help a little bit. And that means he can just go screen. So we're going to get a Mike Conley screen here. And the Nuggets tend to switch everything like this. So we get that switch and Ant just like goes right behind the screen and is like, all right, I'm just going to fire this thing. Jamal is not quite there yet. Jamal's got his feet below the 3-point line here. And Ant can just get into this shot with ease, right?
Yeah, I mean, the deceleration, the explosion, elevation on this jump shot, anywhere it's at is impressive.
He drills this one. Next time down the court now. Here comes Anthony Edwards in transition. He's got Aaron Gordon guarding him in transition. And I just wanted to pull this for the craft off the bounce. I swear, like, Anthony Edwards had some stuff off the bounce when he was younger. He had nowhere near the tightness of handle that he has now when he was younger. Like, he's going to inside out this into a crossover with full leverage, full speed, staying low, keeping this ball away from Jamal Murray, by the way, who's digging in to help.
Yep.
Look at how Anthony Edwards like extends this ball out here to get it away from Jamal digging into the handle. The tightness of handle is sick here. And then just the ability to adjust in midair to put his back to Aaron Gordon to shield off Gordon and then throw up like a behind the back layup, basically like an inside hand, like behind the back kind of layup here. It's sick.
Well, and the pull-up jump shooting plays into all of this as well, because if there was no threat for him to stop on a dime right here and take this shot, the in and out move and all of that wouldn't be as effective. Aaron Gordon could just keep backpedaling. I'm also glad you brought up how he navigates that secondary defender in Jamal Murray. So for all the viewers and listeners, guys, really watch an NBA game when somebody is attacking off the bounce and watch the little nuance they use navigating the second defender, the defender that's stepping over to help in. They can't come all the way over in the NBA to cut him off because the floor spacing is too good. The shooters are too good. So they just try to get a hand in there. Watch the really good guards, wings, whoever, even some bigs, use that little, like they'll throw it out ahead, they'll in and out it, whatever they do to navigate that secondary defender. It's really impressive.
Yeah. And, you know, we can go back to the third clip we watched, right? So this play here is very similar to this one, right? 8:16 of the first quarter, where Ant has this ball coming down. He pound dribbles there, right? Still has one hand on the ball. This could easily be a drive still in the first quarter. He decides to pull up and drills it in KCP's face. This time, he's coming down in transition. He has the ability to do that again, and he sets up the same way, right? Like he goes for that little pound dribble in his right hand. So Gordon has to be up here at the level a little bit higher of the 3-point line. And now we're inside outing into a crossover into this ridiculous layup package. It's completely absurd. Next one here, Anthony Edwards going to take this again, kind of a dribble handoff situation. Takes the DHO. They switch it. It gets him onto Jamal Murray again. He's like, I am just stronger than Jamal Murray. I'm going to back him down, get to my spot, get to that like 13-foot range that Bryce brought up earlier being so important. Cans that. Next one here again. Ant being guarded by KCP. This time, instead of running the 2-1 ball screen, they run the 1-2 ball screen, and he just kind of seals off Murray and makes it so that he has to take him. And then this is just going to be a little pull-up jumper here. It's just ridiculous. He's completely ridiculous in this game. This one's going to be a steal off of the wide pass. He throws a really nice hit ahead to Monte Morris here, who just kind of bobbles it, gets it around to Jordan McLaughlin, throws up this like Sam Young level pump fake. Do you remember Sam Young at Pitt?
Yes,
Bryce?
I do. Yes, I do.
Throws up the Sam Young level pump fake here to Jokic, gets Jokic all the way up on his toes.
This Euro step
Drives
is
here.
impressive.
Euro step starts
Outside the lane.
Outside the lane here. Ends
Middle of the lane.
Middle of the lane there. And then because he's so strong and so powerful and so explosive off of 1 foot even, he can still get it to where he's taking this final step here from what we're going to call that 7.5 feet away about,
Yep.
right?
Sure. Yep.
And he's still going to get close to the rim to be able to finish. Like takeoff points are really important, right? Like most guys, when you get to your takeoff point, it needs to be as close as possible to the basket. Unless you're an athlete like Anthony Edwards, and you can not only explode, forward, but also explode upward and have real hang time and can absorb contact as well, because that's the other thing. You're going to get bumped in that area every single time.
I want to highlight, like most NBA players are going to be this way, but just, like somebody like me, Sam, who wasn't near this close to the, a lot of people will be 1 foot jumpers, right? So you have a lot of players that are right hand or left hand dominant. A lot of people are leg dominant as well. So what I want to highlight here, he Euro steps off his left leg. And if the NBA lane is 16 feet wide, he covers about 8 feet on this Euro step. He may not get all the way, let's say 7 feet. And then now he's jumping off his right leg, exploding to the rim through contact from 7 or 8 feet away. Now he doesn't get all the way to the rim, but he takes the contact and finish. My point being, think about how explosive he is off both. So he's explosive off both legs at the same time, but individually he's explosive off both of his legs as well. And that's what makes guys crazy athletes and practical athletes, is they can do it off 2, off 1, off each foot.
Yeah, it's completely absurd. And by the way, you're like about Anthony Edwards' height, right?
I'm
you're like
6'6".
pretty
Yeah.
close.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like you're probably like half an inch taller than Anthony Edwards or something like that. Like
Yep.
maybe even an inch taller. Like in theory, you could cover this ground. Like you understand the mechanics of how you could cover this ground. But like in practicality, like you're saying, it's just different.
I could cover in my day, I could have covered the Euro step ground, and then I would have had no ability to elevate off my right foot, take contact and finish. If that makes here's the other thing. This is all in traffic. Like Jokic is right behind him as well. So some guys look really good in layup lines, covering ground, Euro stepping, exploding to the rim. It's a whole nother thing when there are bodies and hands and feet around them. This is practical athleticism at its finest, being able to do this in a crowd.
And he's even got KCP here 4 on the side where the drive started. It's completely absurd. Final clip here, 225. Garza's going to get this steal. And now we've got Ant just coming down again.
Take the lead. Did you see the smile after this one? Man, he was feeling pretty good after this one. I like to see it.
It's a shame that he didn't score again after this one. I thought Denver particularly did an absolutely fantastic job of getting in his space and of crowding the lane. They made it so it wasn't just, Jamal Murray in charge of him or Aaron Gordon in charge of him, right? They really did a good job of like making it like it's a village, right? We're making sure that we're getting multiple bodies, throwing multiple bodies at Anthony Edwards all the time, making it so that it's tough for him to get anywhere. I loved the first 3 quarters of this game. That's why he didn't score in the fourth. I thought Denver really locked up and did a great job schematically, defensively. Michael Malone deserves a lot of credit. I will say, before we get to the defense, this is a game where Anthony Edwards had like 8 assists, right? I still am of the belief that there is a lot of growth potential for him as a passer.
Sure.
A lot of his assists in this game came off of like, I wrote them down. It's like he had 2 post passes, like where he was posting a man and like hit a kick out. He had like one like little easy like pick and pop, like slip pass to Garza. He had like an easy kind of like drive and dump to Luka. He had like a bounce pass like into wide open space to Kyle Anderson for one of these. Like 6 of his assists were like just, you know, super easy reversals or, you know, post kickouts, you know, that are valuable, but not necessarily like you're on the move, you're attacking, you're processing what's happening like within the help defense, not as a scorer, but as a playmaker. He had 2 in this game that I thought were really quite good. He hit like a little mini skip pass to the corner off of a drive. And that was the one where I was like, okay, like you have the wherewithal to do this. That to me is where the next step is going to come for Anthony Edwards. And I think that's sometimes why, which has been Minnesota's biggest problem throughout the entirety of this season, has been late game offense. Teams basically try and make Anthony Edwards a passer and playmaker. And I think that he's not quite there yet in terms of being able to do it. As soon as that comes, this guy might be the best player in the NBA, is where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the next level of things, not just getting assists because the defense loads up on you, but getting assists because you see how they're doing it, where it's coming from, manipulating the defense with your eyes, with ball fakes, with your movement, making those high level reads and doing it that way. And I think even more specifically, Sam, in the biggest moments, right? Like here's the great thing about all of this. A month from now, we're going to see this all out play out in the playoffs. We're going to see what he can do because people are going to, like, Jaden McDaniels was awesome in this game offensively, but I think people are still going to say, like, let's make Jaden McDaniels beat us. Let's make those guys beat us. And it'll be fascinating to see. Because if he, like you say, if he adds that to his game along with what he does defensively, like, forget about it. There's obviously going to be an argument for him being one of the best, if not the best player in the game.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about his defense even a little bit more? Because it sounded like you took a bunch of notes on it.
I didn't take a bunch. Like, I do think he really guards and defends and he can make life miserable for people. My notes from this game specifically was there was plays early on, and we highlighted this with Brandon Miller a few weeks ago, and he like got after his teammates. He was calling them out. I don't know if he was necessarily right or wrong. I think he was, but he was getting after them about not making rotations, getting back in the play. And then it happened again where they didn't attack a defensive rebound and the possession actually ended up with a Michael Porter Jr. made 3-pointer. And it's kind of that leadership, right, with Anthony Edwards in terms of being vocal, holding people to a standard, holding people accountable. And he was doing it on the defensive end. So I just kind of wanted to shout that out because it's something we had highlighted whenever we did the Brandon Miller breakdown a few weeks ago.
Yep. I think that's dead on. Look, I think Anthony Edwards is a real shot to take the Timberwolves on like a run here. Like, I think he has a real chance to take the Wolves to like a serious, like Western Conference Finals kind of situation. They need to get healthy. Obviously, we'll see if they can get healthy at the end of the day. They need Towns back. They're going to need, Rudy Gobert missed the game last night. I think that
and Naz Reid.
Particularly serious deal. Naz Reid missed the game last night as well, like you said. I think that the way Ant is playing right now and like the seriousness and the gravity of his game, it feels like we're seeing yet another leap from him. And this is a guy that has like a playoff track record that we've seen already at times.
Is he first team All NBA or second team All NBA?
Probably second. I can't get him ahead of Shea or Luka, I would say. Jokic certainly should be there. I think Giannis deserves to be there. And then who is the obvious fifth one was Embiid.
Tatum now, right? I mean, I'm not saying that's obvious, but the next, like, does it come down to between him and Tatum? You would put him on
Tatum, KD,
Brunson.
I wouldn't have Brunson in this group.
So I think it's like Tatum, KD, and him, right?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Who am I missing? Because Mitchell's not going to get enough games.
So Donovan Mitchell, I looked today, I left him out of the conversation because I think if he misses 1 or 2 more or something like that, like
Yeah, and
I'm assuming he
he's out.
doesn't.
He's out for a week now too. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
not going to get there.
he's not gonna get
Uh,
these were the only names I could come up with that I thought were really in the conversation.
yeah, I mean, like I would have said maybe Kawhi, but like I think
I've been super
Ant.
high on Kawhi, but like the Clippers right now are 4 games back of the Timberwolves.
Yeah, I think you probably give the edge right now to Ant over Kawhi. So yeah, like maybe it really is like Ant versus Tatum for that last first team All NBA spot right now.
That's where I landed. My conversation was going to be, MVP, but all NBA works exactly the same. And the 4 names you listed initially, as like those 4 are all going to be yeses by Sam, that you would take those guys over him. And then Tatum and Durant were my next 2 names. And I was like, I don't know that it's an automatic yes. I think there's a conversation. It's hard to leave Tatum off because
Yeah.
the Celtics are so stinking good. But like Jaylen Brown's getting a lot of love, rightfully so, right now with the Celtics for the way they've played. Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation, and it might come down to these last few weeks, right? Like if he continues on this tear and they finish as the 1 seed, even with Cat missing some time and all of that, like I think it's still up in the air.
What I guess I would say that like so right now we have what like 16 games left, something like that, depending
Yeah,
on the team. I think like I think the Thunder have like 15 games, right? Um, right now I would vote Tatum over Ant.
agreed. I agree.
I think that the trajectory of where those two are heading right now, not in terms that Tatum is playing bad or anything like that. I think that there is a real chance that Ant could catch him.
Yeah. That's what I would have those 5, and then I think Ant would be my first second teamer, along with probably then Kawhi, KD. Then you get into the Jalen Brunson conversation and some of those guys.
Yeah. I think there are 8. I think you're right that there are 8 right now. So yeah. Let's get in to Bilal Coulibaly, but first, I've got a story to share with you, one that's changed my game across the board, folks. You see this life, it was a constant battle for me. I balance writing, podcasting, watching tape, trying to find time for movies, trying to find time for my family. Everything like that is leaving me drained. Mornings were sluggish, afternoons were a haze. Couldn't even pretend to want to do anything in the evening. But man, Magic Mind, it's my secret weapon. I've been incorporating it into my daily routine for about a month now, and let me tell you, the results are beyond everything I could have imagined. No more sluggish mornings, no more midday crashes. With Magic Mind, I'm firing on all cylinders from dawn till dusk. I've got more energy than ever before, a clear head to tackle any challenge that comes my way in productivity. It's absolutely through the roof. I'm smashing goals left and right, and it feels incredible. But it's not just about productivity. Magic Mind has brought some balance back into my life. I'm sleeping better. I feel a little bit less stressed, and my creativity is soaring to absolutely new heights. It's all thanks to the natural ingredients in Magic Mind, nootropics, adaptogens. They're working together to support my mind, my body. It's reducing my anxiety, reducing inflammation. So if you're ready to unlock your full potential, embrace each day with vitality and purpose, then you owe it to yourself to give Magic Mind a try. Head on over to magicmind.com/game theory20 and use that code game theory20, GAMETHEORY20 for up to 56% off your first subscription or 20% off of a one-time purchase. Again, that's magicmind.com/game theory20. Trust me, you're not going to regret it. Here's to a brighter, more energized you. We're also brought to you today by Champs Paperhead. Can you feel it, sports fans? It's finally here, March Madness. Like Bryce and I said, it starts tomorrow, and we couldn't be more excited to sit in front of our screens and watch all of these games. They're going to be fantastic. And if you're watching this Wednesday night, Thursday morning, you still got some time to jump in to our group pool. But let's talk to you about Champs Paperhead to start. Hold on to your hats. The excitement levels are off the charts. We're taking Madness to a whole new level this year with Champs Paperhead. It's an opportunity that's as thrilling as a buzzer beater, a chance to score big with our bracket tournament. Entry is absolutely free, courtesy of Champs Paperhead. When you use our exclusive code Game Theory, GAME space THEORY. And here's the cherry on top. You can double your chances of victory by creating your own tournament as well. Now let's talk about why Champs Paperhead is the MVP of bracket season. With their innovative platform, you're captain of your own ship. You want to kick things off the Sweet 16, consider it done. If you're craving some extra spice with incentives for picking underdogs, they've got you covered there. But wait, Champs Paperhead also lets you channel your own inner bookie, craft some custom bets to keep the adrenaline pumping with your crew. It's like having your own sports book right at your own fingertips. So where can you find this game-changing platform? You head over to champsportspools.com, CHAMPS Sports Pools, POOLS.com/game theory, GAMETHEORY, and dive into the action. This March, be the hero among your squad and orchestrate the ultimate bracket showdown with Champs Paperhead. Trust me, this is an opportunity you do not want to miss. It's an absolute slam dunk. And remember, champions, they're not made sitting on the sidelines. Join the fray and create your winning bracket at champsportspools.com/game theory for a shot at our jaw-dropping $1,000 prize pool. Do not let this chance slip through your fingertips. Get in the game today. Bryce. Okay. Let's talk about Bilal Coulibaly. He has a fractured right wrist that unfortunately is going to hold him out of competition here for the rest of the season. I am sad about this. I also, kind of wonder if getting a chance to like sit down and kind of see the game from a different angle might be kind of helpful for Coulibaly. Overall, I thought his rookie season for the 7th overall pick in the 2024 or 2023 NBA draft was generally a positive. He averaged 8 points, 4 rebounds, 1.7 assists, shot 44% from the field, 35% from three, 70% from the line. A lot of these shots were open and in transition. He was a very low usage player, but he was able to at least like get on the court for 27 minutes a night, which was something that I was actually a little bit skeptical on for his rookie season. I thought there was a chance that he might have to spend some real time in the G League. And if he was playing on a better team, that might have been the reality where he had to spend some time in the G League. But the fact that they felt okay putting him out there for 27 minutes, I thought that was really, really important and impressive. The defensive side was really where I thought he showed the ability to stay on the court. His length, his activity, his instincts, I think he's just really sharp on that end. Overall, do you have any Bilal Coulibaly thoughts now that we're not going to see him again until next season or realistically Summer League?
No, I mean, I think that's where I'm at as well in terms of like this kid is 19 years old. Everybody kind of knew, like, think about the rise he went on into the draft, right? So I don't think it's crazy that this kid that went the path that he went, rising up with his organization overseas and then coming in, turned 19 at the end of July. So he played summer league as an 18-year-old. And a lot of my notes sounds like a kid that's a 19-year-old in terms of he is willing to drive and take contact. He just can't finish because he's not strong enough yet. He's being crazy disruptive on the defensive end, but he has some foundational things to work out in terms of being a little bit more solid. Like all of those things make sense for someone his age in the situation he was in. I think a lot of Wizards fans were upset with his usage. I get it, but I don't think, Sam, he was ready for any more usage. He ended up 20th among rookies, which was actually between Omax and Kamara. But I don't know. Like, I think if he would have done more than what he was asked to do, I don't think it would have been good. I think you get into jeopardy of maybe hurting some confidence or developing bad habits because the process isn't right. I thought a lot of the process when I would watch Bilal Coulibaly was good. I don't care about the results for a rookie on the Washington Wizards. The process was good. I'm still excited about him. Yeah, if you go through the raw stats of where he ranked among rookies, a lot of it's 13th, 15th, those type of things. I'm not worried about it. I still think he ends up being a high level player, especially like you said, with what he can offer defensively. And then as he continues to figure out the offense. I don't know if you're muted, Sam, or.
Yeah, I was muted.
There we go.
I think what's disappointing to me more than anything about it is that I felt like in these last few games, he kind of did start to explore the space just like a little bit more often consistently, right? Like
Sure.
he would have games where he'd have, 2 shots, 3 shots, 6 shots, right? Not regularly, but somewhat regularly, especially early in the season. And then as we got, later in the season, it felt like he was getting more comfortable. If you look at his last 5 games here before he got hurt, including the game that he got hurt, took 7 shots, 8 shots, 12 shots, 9 shots, and 9 shots. Got to the line a bunch, right? Like got to the line 16 times in those 5 games, which for him, given where he was coming from this season, seemed to be quite a bit whenever I would watch. Like, and then you look at the game against Philly on February 10th, right before the All-Star break, got to the line 10 times that game. It just felt like he was kind of figuring out the space a little bit more. And I do wonder if like getting to play these 15 games, maybe getting up into that like 10 shots, 12 shots per game zone over the course of the last 10 games of the year, right? Like that might have been helpful for him in some way, shape, or form. But end of the day, I think this was a positive rookie year for Bilal Coulibaly. I have no real complaints, concerns, anything that any worries about where he was drafted. He needs to continue growing. Like this is nowhere near a finished product yet, and he might not get there. Like this is a real risk for the Wizards. Like he might end up just being a rotation player if he doesn't continue to grow his game off the bounce, if he doesn't continue to improve his shot, if his frame doesn't come along in a more substantial way. But given where he was coming from this year and given the trajectory that you brought up, I think that this was a really positive season for him.
Yeah, I mean, he was 5th in free throw attempts amongst rookies post All-Star break. So if there was one thing to kind of highlight and that stands out whenever you look at his numbers compared to his fellow first-year players, that was it post All-Star break, as you mentioned. And so yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. You brought up, like there can be some learning that goes on. Like obviously you would rather see a player on the floor, but if he does this the right way, which by all accounts, I assume he will, like I have no reason to think that he won't, sitting there and watching these things, especially, I don't think this helps a player as much if they haven't played any games, but since he has played so many games and so many minutes, being able to take a step back, watch, break down film, watch the game from the sidelines, what works for other. I think there is something you can take away from that where you can take a deep breath and just kind of absorb all of that information that then you can take into the offseason, work on it, grow from it, all of that. So is it ideal? No, it would be nice to allow him and see him explore the studio space over the end of the year, but there is still some stuff that can be taken away. And then just looking at his field goal percentage by distance, 67%, 0 to 3 feet, not bad. Even the 3-point percentage at 35 is probably about as good as I expected. He was not good in all those in between ranges, 35%, 13%, 25% moving out from 3 to 10, 10 to 16, 16 to the 3-point line. That looks like it could be a real area for growth in year 2 in terms of finding ways to score the ball efficiently in those mid-range areas.
I think that's right. That's all I've got on Bilal. I'm excited to see him in Summer League. I think that they should really kind of give him the keys, assuming they don't like draft a point guard here. And I guess they could, in theory, take, Nikola Topic or Reed Shepherd or something like that, depending on where their pick is. But I would really love to see them kind of give the ball to Bilal in Summer League and just kind of let him rock a little bit and see what it looks like.
Yeah.
All right. time for off-season previews. We've got two more teams that have been eliminated. As Bryce and I explained on the last Thursday episode, as teams get eliminated from the playoffs this year, we're going to do off-season previews for each of them. We've got two more teams today. We've got the Detroit Pistons and the Portland Trail Blazers. Let's start with the Detroit Pistons here. Bryce's beloved Pistons. The Detroit Pistons are in an intriguing situation this offseason as much as anything. They have realistically like $75 million in cap space that they can spend, which is a wild number to be able to get up to. And honestly, I don't know if they're going to be able to spend $75 million competently this offseason, which is a worry for me. They have a few objectives here that I think that they have to get to, right? The first one is you have to extend Cade Cunningham. To me, that is just the number one assignment here. I think this is just like very clearly a max situation. I can't imagine him asking for anything less than the max. And I think the Pistons are just frankly going to have to give it to him, right? Especially given the way he's played, basically, since the All-Star break, right? He's been absolutely monstrous. If you take away his last game where he went, or last two games here where he played Miami twice and it was like kind of a mess. He'd been averaging 23 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, 2.9 turnovers per game, shooting 47, 40, 91 over his last 15 games. Just an absurd little run that he's had. In total this season, 22 points, 4.3 rebounds, 7.6 assists, 45% from the field, 35% from three, 86.5% from the line. I mean, look, the true shooting percentage is still 6% below league average, which is not ideal by any stretch of the imagination. In part, I think it's just because he is such a mid-range heavy player, but end of the day, I think you just have to get to the point where you max him and you hope it works, because everything that the Pistons have built toward at this point is centered around Cade. And if it doesn't work, your organization is set back for 5 years anyway. This is a different conversation than the one with Jalen Green with the Rockets. They have 3 other guys ahead of him, in the pecking order right now as prospects, in my opinion. The Pistons don't have anything resembling that with Cade Cunningham, and Cade's a better player than Jalen as well. All due respect to how Jalen Green is playing right now. End of the day, I think you just got to max him and go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any question. At the end of the day, in my opinion, this organization is kind of hitched to 2 people. I think it's Cade Cunningham, and based on the contract they gave Monty Williams, I think they're probably hitched to Monty Williams for a little while. I know you can get out from under a coach's contract. I get it. It's not a salary cap thing. It's just a money thing for the owner and all of that. This is just my perspective, is that they are number one for sure, Cade Cunningham. We'll talk about some of the other young players, and then I think Monty Williams is probably as well. And listen, the thing is, people may not want to believe in Cade Cunningham. That's fine. They have to, or they might as well sell off everything and just completely restart. And I don't think there's any way anybody has the appetite for that. So I think you go with Cade Cunningham. I think he's shown enough in flashes. He's shown improvement with the 3-point shot. I think the biggest area of growth for Cade is actually at the rim. I think another offseason of adding strength and weight is going to allow him to be more efficient at the rim. We have seen improvement with the 3-point shot. The finishing at the rim, I think, is the biggest step from this season to next season.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that what Cade has showcased in terms of that finishing ability, a lot of it is stopping short of the rim. It feels and getting into that little floater game and trying to make those little leaning shots and using his length to kind of go over the top that way. It's got to be getting more physical, getting into length extension stuff and being able to score that way. I think that's where he's got to make the leap to me. I think you're dead on just in terms of strength. And look, this is a guy that has not had a crazy number of, high level off seasons at this point, right? He really just kind of needs an off season to be able to go and hopefully get to a place where they're in a, better position continuing to build around him, because they need more talent around him.
Yeah, and he also has to work like, how do I draw fouls in this league? Like, how do
Yep.
I use what I'm good at to get myself to the free throw line? And again, I think his efficiency, the questions are understandable, Sam. They absolutely are, but I don't think it's that far off. Again, I think the 3-point shot, I think has to do with strength in his legs, because when he misses short. You can almost watch the ball come out of his hands, and I can tell you whether he's going to make it or not based off how it comes out. It's either going to be short or he's going to make it most of the time. So he's figured that out to an extent. He gets to the rim and finishes a little bit better. He learns to manipulate defenders to draw fouls and get to the free throw line. And all of a sudden, you have a player that looks the part of what everybody thought when the Pistons drafted him. And as you build the roster around him, there's more energy left for defense and some of those other intangible things. The one thing I'll say about Cade is all of those intangibles have shown through. He took a really bad shot the other night that I don't call Cade out very often, but like I highlighted it and brought it up and tweeted about it. He took full responsibility for it. He didn't hide from it, anything. I've always loved and appreciated that about Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, it just seems like a real dude that, wants to be able to take accountability for everything within the organization. He wants to be a leader. It's been how he is since he's been younger, to be honest with you. He's
Yep.
been that same way. In terms of the long-term core pieces around him, Jaden Ivey, to me, do you have thoughts on Jaden Ivey's season?
Yeah. I mean, I want to hear what you think. Over at the Pistons Pulse, I talk every episode about Jaden Ivey and how good of a player I think he is, and I've been bullish on them working together. I have quickly become the minority in thinking this thing can work. I would guess if you polled Pistons fans, Jaden Ivey would be the name on this list that gets traded.
Yeah, I think that's wild. I would continue to grow around the Cade and Jaden backcourt, but like my issue continues to be like, is Monty Williams going to let Jaden kind of go a little bit? Because
I don't think
Jaden's a
so.
guy where he needs confidence and he needs to be able to go. Like, so if Monty Williams is not going to be moved on at any point in the next 2 years, let's say after this one, because the money is too substantial to be able to do so. Look, as much as I think Jaden Ivey is awesome, and I think Jaden Ivey is worth like trading a top 5 or 6 pick for in this upcoming 2024 NBA draft. It's even given the contract control that you would have over him, you'd still only have him for 2 years and 18 million as opposed to 4 years and 40 million or whatever for top 5 picks. I still would probably do something like that for Jaden. I think his upside is better than anybody in this upcoming draft, point blank.
Yeah, I'm very bullish on Jaden Ivey. I think it can work. I think he's willing to play off the ball. I don't think he has to be a knockdown 3-point shooter for it to work. I think you put other guys that make sense around them, and then just the complete unwillingness to stagger them. And I understand people say, "Oh, your two best players have to be able to play together." I get it, but they can also be staggered and play like that still works. That's part of the process. Cade doesn't play 48 minutes a night, so it makes sense for your second best player to be able to do that. And not that these guys aren't anywhere close, but we just talked about it with Jalen Williams. I'm very much in the minority, is what I've realized. Like, I think Jaden's shown growth defensively, winning on the margins. He's figured out how to be a good offensive rebounder. Those type of, he does have to make shots, Sam. He has to be able to knock down catch and shoot jumpers. He has to be able to do some of those things. The finishing has regressed a little bit throughout the year. I still feel like he's really good. My personal opinion, I am not a reporter. I do not have sources. I have no insights. My personal opinion is Monty Williams is not a fan, and I would not be shocked to see him be the one that is traded of those 3 names below Cade Cunningham.
Hot take. I would absolutely trade Jalen Duren before Jaden Ivey. I don't know about you. I have not been like wildly impressed with Jalen Duren this year. I feel like Pistons fans get super excited and like really love Jalen, but I feel like honestly, I don't want to say he's regressed across the board, but like I feel like he's making fewer and fewer interesting passes, which is one of the things that like
That is true.
really
That's
intrigues
definitely true.
people about Duren is like the ability to make passing reads and be able to short roll and kick out and things like that. I don't think the defense has gotten better. Do you?
It has not.
Yeah, I think that honestly, like it's just continuing to stay the same.
The same. I would agree.
he's still just like powerful and is a great rebounder and is physical. And like, I respect all of those pieces of his game, but like, if this is who he is, and look, he's still 20 years old, like he's still incredibly young. There's still a lot of time, but like, there isn't like a trajectory there. You know what I mean? There's not a move upward. It feels like with Cade, like you saw like him getting better and better and better. I haven't seen that with Duran yet, which is disappointing, I guess.
The one aspect of his game that is improved, and I have no idea how this translates to the aspects of his game we need to see improve, notably the defense, is he has really developed some nice footwork with his finishes. He'll catch in the lane. He'll do this reverse pivot. Like he has some really nice stuff with that. The passing has not grown. Like I was super high on Jalen Duran. Like, don't get me wrong here. This might end up being a miss for me in terms of what I thought his ceiling could be. He hasn't really shown what I thought may be capable of in terms of that passing and some of those type of things. He puts up crazy numbers. He does. He'll play finish. He'll rebound the ball. But the defensive anchor thing is a real worry. And I think what it comes down to with these four guys, and really the three guys other than Cade, is how do you think you should build out a team? How do you think you should build out a winning team in the NBA around Cade Cunningham? Do you need that, the Ivy? Do you need this guy in Jalen Duran? Can Jalen Duran be successful if he's not a rim protector? And then we'll talk about Asar Thompson, who can't space the floor right now, but is pretty good defensively. Is that the most valuable piece? Like, there's people who very strongly feel that Asar Thompson is the one that should stay. Like, maybe you should just trade Ivy and Duran for whatever you can get and build around, Cade and Asar.
So I think where I'm at on this is like, I wouldn't move any of these guys this offseason. Just like kind of point blank, I would keep all four of them and kind of go into next season having to figure out what they are. I would love to get an off season worth of growth basically from them, trying to figure out like, hey, can we be who we want to be with these players? Right. I want to see an off season of growth from all of them before I make a decision. Honestly, I wasn't really going to talk much about Asar. He's the one that has 3 years left. Like, he's got all the time in the world. Like they're going to figure out what to do with him, I think. Isaiah Stewart is locked in 4 years, $60 million. The decision that they have to make this summer, there are two of them that I think are like important, are Quentin Grimes and Simone Fontecchio. Quentin Grimes would be an extension. He's only played 6 games with the Pistons so far. I mean, like, unless it's like a reasonable, like cheap number, I think you probably just have to let this go to restricted free agency, right?
Match. Yeah. And probably match. I mean, on the positive for the Pistons, he hasn't scored the ball well at all. Like, he can't make a shot whenever he has played. So it hasn't been great. The one that's a little more like Simone has been awesome. Like, absolutely awesome. Way better than I even thought. Been able to attack off the bounce a little bit, done some things defensively. I do want to make a quick note on Asar Thompson, just like from a health perspective, like shout out him that he's okay. He had this weird thing where he went out in the Mavs game when you could tell he just like couldn't catch his breath, and it was like asthma. Ended up being a blood clot. I don't know all the specifics about it. I know that sounds really scary and really dangerous. By all accounts, he's okay, but he is shut down for the season. So just like wanted to send the best to Asar Thompson dealing with that. And for what it's worth, Isaiah Stewart also is done for the year with a hamstring.
So the next kind of question here for us is we kind of talk through this is, what do you pay Simone Fontecchio?
That's the question. I don't know what the market is going to be for him. Like, can you get him back on the essentially, like, I would want it to be somewhere in the 10 to 12, 13, like the non-tax MLE. Like, that's where I would want. I feel like that's reasonable and realistic.
Simone right now is averaging 15 points per game on 48, 43, 85 for the Pistons. Has been fantastic. And he was great for Utah this season. He was absolutely amazing, I thought. And really helped them be a real play-in contender for a minute there. I think losing him was really, really important, and probably just as important as losing Kelly Olynyk, to be honest with you, if you're the Utah Jazz. So in terms of what they should do with Simone, I think you have to retain him. He's like fairly useful on defense. He's not like a great defender or anything, but he's like useful.
He's net neutral with like what he does off the ball, communicates, plays hard, and his size.
That's it. I think that like, I mean, like, here's the question. Like, if it gets to like 15 million, do you just have to bite the bullet and do it? Like 3 years, 45, like that's not impossible that they try and squeeze them. My guess is that that doesn't happen because he's restricted and not unrestricted. If he was unrestricted, I think it'd be a significant problem.
Yeah.
But them holding his rights, I think there's a chance that like this probably does not get above the mid-level, would be my
Well,
guess.
the other thing is they have all this cap space you're talking about. Like they can probably afford what's scary is you don't want to go too many years. If it's not too many years, and Fontecchio is a little bit older than what people probably realize because of how long it took him to get over here. So
Yeah.
as long as you don't extend the years too far, because eventually this team could get expensive, either with these guys getting off their rookie deals or you trade them for a real star, whatever ends up happening. And so you want to keep some flexibility into the future. That's why like the Isaiah Stewart deal, it's probably too much now, but there is a team option on the end of that they could get out from under. So with Simone, you have so much cap space this offseason. Like, I don't think you can like, it's not going to hinder you crazy as long as it's not too many years.
The other big thing with Simone is that he has a $3.8 million cap hold. So there's going to be a real overage there where they can wait to sign him until the end and use that 75 million or 73,
Yeah,
whatever it is, in
after
cap
they're over the
space
cap.
after they're over the cap by using their, I believe they have full bird rights on him. They might only have early bird rights on him now that I think about it. But regardless, like I think that they should be able to use those to be able to retain him. Even if they can't, they have the space to do so.
Real quick on Quentin Grimes, like it would be pretty disappointing if he left or doesn't at least start making shots just because of there was nothing that really came back in that trade. You know what I mean? So like now Bogey and Burks haven't been great since they went to New York. So I think maybe as Pistons fans and people that cover the team, like even myself, I think I probably overvalued where those guys were at in their careers because they just look good on this Pistons roster. But it would be really frustrating to like Grimes walk this offseason and essentially you got nothing in that trade.
Yep. So with Simone, the Pistons should be able to get up to like, I believe it's like 13 million using his early bird rights, like something in that ballpark in order to retain him. Okay, like here's our last question here. Like you see this roster, you have 75 million. What are you using the 75 million on?
I think it's got to be a trade because I don't think there's a free agent. Like I know you put Tobias Harris there. Like that's not necessarily what I want to do. If it is Tobias Harris, I want it to be that 1 year, like then you're out the next
Balloon
year.
payment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
balloon payment. As good friend Keith Smith says, you can't overpay for 1 year when you're a rebuilding team. Like they just,
Yep.
if everything else falls through and you have to pay Tobias Harris, then do it. Like I don't love it. I think that's not a successful offseason, but you have to get better. Somebody brought up like what the Rockets did. You have to put some quality vets on this roster. You have to go win some games next year. We're entering 4th year of Cade Cunningham, 3rd year of Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. As young as Duren is, you have to put real basketball players on the floor. You can't just draft somebody at 2 or 3 or wherever they end up, somebody in the 50s in the 2nd round and take on sin contracts again. I think it's a trade. They have some future picks now they could use if they really want to go all in. I know that's super scary, but they're already at a negative with capital. But yeah, I think it ends up being a trade. I don't know what that trade is. I don't know what the name is.
Yeah. I have a couple of names that I wonder about in terms of free agency. I haven't thought a crazy amount about necessarily trades with the Pistons yet. A name that I'm wondering for them is like, do you go and get like somebody like Malik Monk? Like somebody like that?
I would be so happy. I love Malik Monk, but
yeah, Malik Monk has been fantastic this year. He is a free agent. They would be able to pay him just like very real money, obviously, in order to go get him. To me, like they need just somebody who can go get a bucket like out of structure in some way. Like Cade is somebody that does need to be able to play within structure a little bit. Monk this year is averaging 16 points, 5 assists, shooting 45, 37, 82. I will say if you do go get Monk, like I wonder about Jaden Ivey's future there, and maybe that is a situation where you look into a trade. But somebody like that makes a ton of sense to me. I mean,
I
another
mean,
guy
if
that like
I was gonna say, if
go ahead.
Monk is willing to come off the bench because you paid him so much with the understanding that he still will, that bench unit, or what I want the bench unit to be, could use somebody like that. Like, you put him on the bench with Quentin Grimes, with I still like Isaiah Stewart is a bench big to me. Like, I think that's where his real value comes from. Maybe even Asar, until he really fills out his floor spacing, plays as like a bench four, and you're rattling off a staggered Jaden Ivey with Monk, Grimes, Asar, something like that. I mean, that, or maybe it's Fontecchio instead of Asar, whatever it is. I think that is what would be interesting to me.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with you. I just think that if you're paying Malik Monk the money, you're probably going to have to
Sure.
start at the end of
Yeah,
the day.
that's fair.
The big forward spot is something they still need, though. Like,
Oh
they
my
still need
gosh.
an answer there. And I don't know if there's a guy that exists. Like, I'm assuming Pascal Siakam is off the board. I'm assuming that OG Anunoby is off the board here. I want nothing to do with Miles Bridges if I'm Detroit. Like, I can't imagine that like bringing him home is like a particularly good idea for them. Also, just like generally, the Miles Bridges experience is something I want nothing to do with. A name I put here is Pat Williams. I wonder what the Bulls are going to do with Pat Williams. He's a restricted free agent, obviously. They have to find a way to spend the money somehow. And they're a team that, because they have so much money, I wonder if they care less about tying their money up for a day or two in restricted free agency, because it doesn't necessarily impact all of their plans. Pat Williams fits on an age timeline perspective. He is out for the season. He just had foot surgery, right? Like, averaged 10 points per game this season, shot 39% from three again. Big physical body, doesn't really rebound, but like has some real potential on defense. I can see this being a Troy Weaver guy, is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that for sure. I don't know, they don't have a true four-man on the roster, in my opinion. Like, Isaiah Stewart, we've seen it. He tried it. It's not it. He needs to be off the bench with 70% of his minutes at the 5 and 30% of his minutes at the 4 against certain matchups. I think Asar is like interesting as a 4, but he's still not like a true 4-man. And, Simone, I think, can do it. But again, like those, he's still more of like a 3. So I think someone like Pat Williams would be interesting. He spaces the floor. So then maybe you can play Asar at the 3 in that lineup. Duren, if he's still your center, makes up for the rebounding or lack, you squeeze Patrick Williams between Asar and Jalen Duren. He doesn't need to rebound with those two guys on the floor. And then he provides floor spacing. So that makes sense. Maybe then Fontecchio, Stu, Sasser, Grimes kind of lead your second unit with a top 5 pick. That's interesting. It's not as talented. It's not as much as what I would want, but it's the start. Like, eventually there's going to be a trade. I think this becomes, is a trade at some point with a couple. Like, I don't think all 4 of those young guys, I wouldn't do it this offseason. I think like the deadline makes a lot more sense, but eventually, you're going to move 1 or 2 of those guys a pick to get the guy that really is a piece.
Final question here, Bryce. They have this draft pick here, projected at number 2, who knows what it is. Could be somebody like an Alex Sarr, right? Like somebody that, is a bigger potential 4-man, potential 5. Could be somebody like a Cody Williams, who's a big, 3-4 that we're talking about. Is there somebody that you like for that pick?
Yeah, I mean, I would take Risache if they have the ability to do so. If he's not on the board, then it becomes, do you take Cody Williams? Do you take Matas? I know there's been a lot of conversation, depending on where it falls, like even, potentially Reed Shepherd, right? Like, you just get a floor spacer on the floor. Like, this probably means the end of Jaden Ivey, they did it last year. They brought Jaden Ivey off, or this year they brought Jaden Ivey off the bench to start the year. Like, do you start doing something like that again and seeing if he becomes that type of guy? Like, I don't know. I'm also willing to entertain the conversation of Alex Sarr, and then, do you ask Duren to come off the bench? Do you trade Duren? Those type of things. I still don't like the idea of giving up on a 20-year-old. But a lot of these options are on the table. And so it will be, this is what's great about this draft, is it makes things really interesting regardless of where the pick lands.
Yeah, look, this is subject to change. We're doing this on March 20th. My little mini board right now for the Pistons would be something like Ricochet, probably Sar, then like Modest and Cody Williams in there. And then probably like Reed and Steph Castle next, I think. That'd be kind of where my inkling and inclination is right now.
Yep. No, that's kind of where I'm at. We brought up Reed Shepherd, Mr. Ray. I think we both talked about him.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, it's time for us to dive into the Portland Trail Blazers offseason. The Blazers have also been eliminated from the playoffs this week, so it's time for us to talk a little bit about what we think their future holds and where this could go. Let's dive in and just kind of look at this little brief preview that I created for them as well. Number of different options here, number of different potential opportunities that I think you could look at. Having said that, this is going to be a shorter discussion than the Pistons one, just because it's a quieter, potential offseason for them. They're over the cap. They have trade options for sure, but probably not a free agency team. They have Scoot Henderson, who I don't know, like Scoot, like what has been your take on the Scoot experience? It just feels stop-starty because of the injuries, and he's a young guard in the NBA, and young guards are always hard. Darius Garland, De'Aaron Fox, you can go back all the way through history, and there are a number of them that have struggled pretty immensely in the same way Scoot has. I'm not as concerned about that moving forward for Scoot. I still think he has a pretty substantial and tremendous upside, and he's still the guy for me that I'm building around if I'm them.
Yeah, I like, do I have a little bit more concerns than I did going to the draft? Maybe. But again, like he's dealt, like it hasn't been super smooth for him. He watched the game recently. He got to his spot. He just didn't make them. Like, I believe in the mid-range jumper. The first one looked smooth. The next couple he missed. He got to the rim some. He wasn't able to finish. He's going to have to figure that out in terms of NBA bodies and strength and athleticism and all of those type of things. A three-point attempt off the dribble looked good. The one off the catch, not so much. And so a lot of the things we were a little nervous about have come to fruition, but I don't have any concerns that we haven't just seen it be perfect so far in his rookie season. I think my biggest takeaway is I thought Scoot was a really good passer in the pre-draft film. This is actually the game I watched against the Bulls. I would have liked to see him break down the defense and create a little bit more. Now, there's some context with who he is on the floor with, but I think that would have been my bigger takeaway more than anything is like, hey, can you, how are you breaking down the defense and finding your teammates and creating for them? But yeah, I'm with you. It wasn't a stellar rookie season, but I'm not like sounding the bell or, the sirens in worry.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as well on this. And, trying to figure out the guys around Scoot is interesting.
Yes.
Because the way I've kind of laid it out here, I have Shaedon Sharpe and Jeremy Grant in like their long-term core under contract. And I put Anthony Simons in like the other assets like under control. And that's not because I think Anthony Simons is a worse player than Jeremy Grant or like a worse player than Shaedon right now. I think Simons is Portland's best player, if I'm being honest with you. But the timeline is becoming fuzzy with Simons to me. And right now, like in the minutes we've seen, and Shaedon, missed a lot of time this year and everything. So it's hard to, really get a full picture of it, I think. There does seem to be a lot of overlap between Scoot, Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, right? And then you throw Brogdon into the mix. Like the whole backcourt felt very samey a lot of the time when things were happening for them. So given that this roster seems unlikely to change much going into next season, and we'll talk about like the potential for trades here momentarily, but given that this seems unlikely to like go down a road of complete overhaul in a lot of ways, you'd be entering a season next year with Anthony Simons where he's still extremely young, like 24, 25 years old, but only has 2 years left on this extension that he signed. And if you get to the deadline, you're at a year and a half left on the extension. That's probably when like the perfect time to move him is. And I actually wonder if they would get more by moving him this summer than anything. But if you move him, you need to be damn sure that Scoot or Sharp can be like your guy that can handle the offense. This is why I think that they probably just have to keep Simons this summer. But this is the summer where I think this becomes like something of a question, at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, as I look at it, I kind of wonder because are you going to start those three guys together? If not, who do you ask to come off the bench? Can you talk? Do you want to work Sharp into it slowly to start the season? I
Well,
think,
and do you know enough about who should come off the bench yet, like
yeah,
talent wise for them? Like, I don't know if we have that answer yet.
yeah, exactly. And so I'm with you. I think I would rather trade Simons this summer, go into the season with this young backcourt of Scoot and Sharp, and just know that that's probably what the future is. But the other side of it is I kind of, because we don't know how good that is going to be yet, especially this early in their career, I kind of want to keep Simons around for insurance reasons. Like, hey, we may need this guy to come in and give us all the things that he does. And so I feel like the happy medium, the compromise is keep them all on the roster throughout the offseason, trade them at the deadline, and do it that way. Or if it's like, oh my gosh, one of these guys isn't it, we get some more data and we're really worried about, I don't even want to say either their names because I don't think this is what's going to happen, but we don't think that they're going to develop the way we thought. Okay, let's reconfigure with Anfern or Simons at 24 years old. Maybe he's the one we need to keep on the roster and move on from one of the other ones.
Right. This is why I think at the end of the day, they're probably just going to have to keep him
I think
this
so too.
summer in terms of like seeing the way this works. But I bring this up to say we're rapidly approaching where like this does need to be a conversation. And if I was another team like Orlando that like needs another scorer, I would probably be calling Portland at least this summer and seeing like, hey, you've got some overlapping pieces here. We really like Anthony. He's only got 2 years left. He's the one where it might not fit quite the same timeline. Can we go about, having a conversation on this maybe?
Yeah, I mean, and that'd be interesting, right? In Orlando with the defenders they have around him to kind of make up for any limitations there and just say, hey, just go get buckets, man. Like, just go get buckets and we'll take care of a lot of the defensive infrastructure. That would be interesting for Orlando.
The other like interesting player here is DeAndre Ayton
Yeah.
because like DeAndre started the season like just so incredibly disappointingly to me. I thought he was so frustrating to watch and was just so not there in terms of, screening effort and consistency, like defensively. Like I thought there were a lot of really frustrating moments with him. Adjusting to a new city, obviously, has never really left like the Southwest of the United States before this. I get it. Over his last 20 games, DeAndre Ayton is averaging 21 points, 12 rebounds, shooting 63% from the field and never getting to the free throw line, but shooting 90% from the line. They have really figured out how to weaponize him as a roller again, which is what he should be. And he has been like a fantastic, fantastic offensive player, I think, and been, look, like I don't want to overstate it and say like he's been like some incredible defender, but like they aren't a catastrophe on defense. And like he's been pretty okay. I do want to just like call out. I think that you keep DeAndre Ayton and you keep rolling with this, given that he was a big part of the Dame return and given what he has now shown over these games that frankly don't really matter for Portland, but like there's at least been enough here now to where I want to keep him. And I wonder if, we get to next summer, he might be like an asset for somebody. At the very least, like could be like a useful rim runner and screen and roll big for these guards to continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd keep him on the roster for sure. I just don't think he would stop me from drafting one in the draft if somebody fell to me that made sense,
Sure.
right? Like you moved up in the lottery and Sar falls to 3 because, whoever Reese and Cody Williams go 1, 2. I'm not taking Alex Sarr if he's the top guy on my board because I have DeAndre Ayton or something like that, right? Or even with their second first round pick, if somebody's there that makes like you fall in love with Yves Missi or something like that, right? Like just throwing names out there. I'm not saying I would do that. I'm just saying if the Blazers have him as the number one guy on their board whenever their pick is up, I don't think that stops you from taking them. But because of what you've talked about, because he does rebound the ball, he does offer something in pick and roll. He can make some shots. He's never going to be as physical as people want. He's never going to be as authoritative as people want. I get it, but it's still valuable to these young guards, specifically Scoots. And so I think because of that, like you don't move him until you really, really know that you have the replacement.
Yeah, to me, it can't be a true big. It basically just can't be a true big that you're drafting because you have Rob Williams still on this roster.
That's true.
You have Dwap Reith on this roster, and Dwap Reith has been really valuable.
Very
and he's
interesting.
On a really good minimum deal now moving forward for them, where they've got him for 2 more years beyond this one at like $4 million total. And he's like a definite like useful backup center in my opinion. So
that's true. That's fair.
I think you probably can't go true big in the draft, but I think that you can probably look a few different scenarios, a few different places and try and figure things out. The guy that I do wonder about this summer is Brogdon. Obviously could have gotten moved at the deadline this past year. The question for them is going to be now, do you try and extend him or do you try to move him? You have to do one this summer, I think. If you really like having him around for the younger guards, maybe you do give him an extra year and then just like kick the can down the road. But it can't be more than an extra year given Brogdon's, injury history. And it can't really be like for crazy money. It couldn't be for more than what he's on now, in my opinion. So if I'm them, I'm probably just trying to move him. And I think I could probably get like a late first rounder worth of value in some way, shape, or form. Be it, a distressed asset player or something like that. That's probably what I'm trying to do, though, if I'm Portland. I think this is the summer where you move Brogdon.
And I think a little bit of that depends on what you do with the Simon situation as well. I don't know that I would sign up for trading both of those guys this summer because then if you're going to trade Simons, I can see where Brogdon becomes a little more valuable being, I know Simons again is only 24, but a little more experience there. And so if you're going to trade Simons for sure this summer, I might consider keeping Brogdon, extending like what you're talking about. But yeah, I would be inclined to doing what we've talked about, keeping those 3 guys in the backcourt and then just going ahead and seeing what I can get for Brogdon. Cause like, I hate to say it, like it sounds bad, but like, when you can trade him this summer as opposed to halfway through the season when there's a chance that he's hurt and then you can't trade him, like I would rather just get that moved on whenever I can get some value for it.
I think that's right. And I think that's how I feel about it as well. Generally, it feels like this team just doesn't have a lot of maneuverability this summer. Like they can try and move Matisse Thybulle. They can try and move Rob Williams. I don't know what they'd get for those guys. The Rob Williams injury stuff seems quite scary given his contract. And then Matisse Thybulle, just has been outplayed by Toumani Camara, frankly, this year. So Toumani feels like your defense first guy moving forward. I think they did a good job this offseason hitting on the super margins, like nailing the Dwap Reith getting Toumani Camara as a throw-in in the Damian Lillard deal, right? Like they nailed a lot of the marginal stuff. They just need to hope that the big stuff can come at some point. This draft's going to be hard to find like a true number 1 option, but this Golden State pick and their own pick, they're going to have a lot of potential maneuverability there. Like they could do some things where maybe if they want somebody and somebody wants to move down, it wouldn't surprise me if they wanted to move down in this class. Could you attach, if it ends up at number 5 and number 13 to get up to number 2 because you love somebody, right? Maybe something like that could be real. Yeah.
I mean, I think what you put there is exactly right. You have the backcourt. We've talked about it. You have some bigs, right? We talked about DeAndre Ayton. Dwap Reith is really interesting. So it's like you have some of these wings and forwards, and obviously Jeremy Grant, a completely different level. But I'm interested in Tumani Kamara. Can he figure it out offensively? Chris Murray, like those guys. But you need some high upside wings forwards, like some real potential
That's it.
starters. And then Kamara and Murray and those guys can just come off the bench and be in the roles that they need to be in. And so I think the question becomes, do you trade up to 2 to draft Cody Williams or Risache, or do you stay where you're at and maybe one of those falls to you at 5, or you take Buzelis at 5 and then you get another bite at the apple with Dalton Connect, an older prospect, or Saloon, or somebody like that. Or, if it falls even lower, then you're getting into the Keyshawn George, Johnny Furphy, some of those guys potentially, if it hits a little bit later. Do you take 2 bites at it and see if you can hit on one or both, obviously?
Yeah, I think that you probably take 2 bites at it, just given
I
where
would
they're
as well.
at, right? Like given this draft, given what everything is, like I would think that they will, if they end up at 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that, in all likelihood, one of Zachary Sachet, Modest Buzelis, Alex Sarr, Cody Williams gets to them. I would
agree.
think.
I would agree.
And I would kind of just let that happen,
Yep.
and then use 13 and take whoever I think the best player available is at 13, right? Like whoever I really like, and go from there. It doesn't have to be a young guy. Like I like Kyle Filipowski for them. Like I think that would be a really interesting, bigger 4 or 5 hybrid. They've had success with Duaparith this year. Can't go like true big in my opinion. And you wouldn't want to take Sarr and like Filipowski, but you could take one of those 2 and then take like a bigger wing, which would mean you'd want to take the bigger wing at 3, 4, 5 if you could, and hope that one of the bigs is there, like Saloon, Filipowski, the skilled ones is just kind of there at 13. They have a lot of options though. I think Portland has a lot of options in the draft this year to be able to do some things. I don't think that they are close enough to where they should be making like big structural moves where they go and like trade number 13 and Shaden and Simons for like a star. That doesn't make sense to me. I think they need to just keep building this gradually, and that's not exciting or thrilling or anything. And I'm sure Blazers fans won't love to hear that necessarily, but I think at the end of the day, you just kind of have to keep going and like probably accumulate a 2025 draft pick that's pretty high, right?
Yeah. And like I say, you can't make any of these ground breaking decisions or game changing decisions so what you have in the backcourt. Like it's too early to do those things until exactly what Scoot is. Not exactly, but have a better idea and more data of what Scoot is, what his trajectory is, thing with Shaden, all of that. Once you have that information or some more data to make you feel comfortable about that, then you can start to look to make those moves. I think they're set up decent. Like I say, it's not going to be necessarily fun for Blazers fans or crazy exciting. I guess maybe there's some trades here, but you're set up with those 2 first-round picks to take 2 swings on guys that could come in and fill positions that you need, find out what this young group is, and go from there.
Yep. I think that's right, Bryce. That's all I've got on the Blazers. Really, it's not going to be like a super thrilling summer for them, I don't think.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, last thing we want to talk about, NBA draft real quick. Before we get into the NCAA tournament, we did a big tournament preview on Sunday. I don't think we need to do that again. But what we can do is talk about 2 things that I want to talk about at least, and then I'll give the floor to you. So First, Ryan Dunn played last night in what could only be described as a catastrophic Virginia game, right? He scored 14 first half points. The whole thing was a total disaster. I have thoughts on Virginia basketball that I don't really need to get into now. I think they need to figure out the recruiting side on offense again. It just feels like such a substantial issue. I've heard that the NIL situation there has been an issue for a while now. And, the key that people forget with them is that they won their title in the 3rd year of their, best recruiting class in school history with Ty Jerome, Kyle Guy, DeAndre Hunter. I think Jay Huff was in that class as well. Like, those are 4 NBA players. They recruited 4 guys that got a cup of coffee, at least in the NBA. And that's why they were able to win the title. They need to get back to the level where they are recruiting high level players. If they don't, they're not going to get back to the level they were, 3 years ago. If they do, and figure out what it is. Is it NIL? Is it you're recruiting the wrong players? Is it that the offensive scheme is not allowing you to recruit the right players? You need to figure that out. But Ryan Dunn started out this game in the first 5 minutes and was unbelievable. He had like 4 unbelievable rim contests in 5 minutes, including 2 block shots. Makes like a turnaround baseline jumper, makes like a little like floating shot like in the mid paint there. And then from that point forward was just like completely and, utterly invisible on at least the offensive side of the court. Like he's always active and aggressive on defense. He's an incredible player. Do you think we learned anything about Ryan Dunn in his first 4 game?
No, I mean, just watching it, it kind of was who he is, right? Like the defense is incredible. It's awesome. There's great versatility. There's great disruption and playmaking. And offensively, it's really scary on what that's going to be. And I'm fascinated to see what NBA teams are going to think of it. Like it's something I'm really encouraged to find out as we really get into this thing. That's what's it's exciting to watch March Madness. It's also exciting that we're getting to the end of the year because then we really get into this stuff and, pre-draft workouts start and intel starts and all of that stuff. And guys enter the portal, guys decide they're not going to enter, all of those things. And so I'm fascinated to I may learn something about how NBA teams feel about this archetype of player. I know I've dropped him on my board because of some conversations I've had with scouts and teams.
Well, so here's the question. We just talked about the Blazers, right? Where would you take Toumani Camara in this draft?
Toumani Camara in this draft. No. Late 20s, maybe.
Yeah, like he'd be a first round pick for me somewhere. I don't know where it would be. I'd probably take him earlier in the late 20s, to be honest with you. It'd probably be like early 20s to me. But like I would take Toumani Camara in this draft in the first round, like no questions asked. And that's a lot of what Ryan Dunn is. And frankly, I think Ryan Dunn is probably a better defensive player than Toumani Camara is right now. And I get that sounds probably pretty wild to Portland fans, but Ryan Dunn is that good on defense. Like he is similar size, 6'8", 220 pounds, 230 pounds, flies around, incredible help defender, incredibly disruptive, great scramble rotations. He's the best defensive player in college basketball. It's a joke that he's not up for college basketball defensive player of the year, the Naismith Award. Like, what are we doing, guys? Do better. To me, he's, probably a slightly better Toumani Camara, and where you would take Toumani Camara is probably pretty similar to where you would take Ryan Dunn. And I think that, the Blazers would probably take Toumani in the first round, and I think a lot of teams would.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Ryan Dunn's still a first round prospect. It's just, it'll be interesting. Like I say, it'll be really interesting to see how he ends up getting valued.
Next question. So I posed this to you because a guy that I have really come around on a lot is Johni Broome at Auburn. 6'10", long arms, one of the best defensive players in college basketball, point blank, right? Versatile on defense. You can do a lot of different stuff with him, play him and drop. I think he has some potential to play at the level a little bit more often than other bigs can. Really strong rim protector, communicates really well seemingly on the interior. And then offensively can run some dribble handoff stuff, has made pick and pop threes this year. I think he's made like 10 of them. Made 35% of his 77 threes overall. I think that there is some real ceiling with Johni Broome in terms of being like a good, solid backup center. Where are you at on Johni Broome?
Yeah, I mean, I was late to the party on this, right? Like we talked about this, I think last episode that I had people kind of text me about him, ask me about him. So I really dove into the film over the last couple of days. The offense is interesting because it's like a small ball, not small ball, but smaller. He doesn't have like crazy size for a 5 stretch big, but the shooting metrics are, I don't want to say concerning, but they don't necessarily back it up. He's had some nice passes out of the mid post. I would like to know, like, if I knew for sure that was going to translate to the short roll, I would feel a little bit better about it. And then defensively, I love the positioning. I don't often write about communication in guys' scouts because I only write about it if it actually shows up. I loved his defensive communication. Like, he was very demonstrative with it. I think he might be one of the better defensive communicators of the bigs I've watched this season. That's a real value in the NBA, is calling out schemes and actions and what's coming. So I think that provides real value. So I'm definitely intrigued. He went from like not on my radar to my top 60 as I watched those couple of games. And then things could move and shake as I watch NCAA tournament games now, specifically with him. He's a guy like I'll definitely want to key in on.
Yeah, like I've got him like in the 40s right now. Like I'm pretty interested. Like I have him ahead of like the Kalkbrenner range. I've got him, you know, like honestly, like the name I brought up to you.
Yeah.
And I still like this guy a little bit more, but I thought it was an intriguing comparison point was Oso. And people know that I love Oso. I love his game. I love what he's capable of on the offensive end, his processing ability, his passing ability, his synergy with his point guard and ball screens, and being able to be like an incredible screener and having incredible athleticism in terms of fluidity and functionality that allows him to like flip his hips and do all kind of crazy shit. Like I really like Oso, but Johni Broome is like drastically ahead of him as like a defensive anchor, rebounder, interior rim protector, in my opinion. And he can do, what do you want to call it? 55 to 65% of what Oso can in dribble handoffs and that. And then he can pick and pop occasionally, which Oso can't.
So like, here's what it comes down to. Like, I'll concede that Johni is better defensively. I want to watch more to see, like, are you completely sold that he holds up in drop? Because I believe in the like, I actually came away feeling a little better about the versatility. Like, hey, he can play at the level every now and then. He can hard hedge and recover every now and then. Do you think he like has the vertical pop and the length and everything to drop?
As a backup, maybe.
Okay.
I like him a little bit more in like a versatile scheme as opposed to a pure drop scheme.
Agreed.
But maybe is my answer.
Okay. So I will concede that he's better defensively than Oso on the defensive boards as well. Where I came down to it was here's the caveats. I think Oso's definitely better and more fluid in DHOs, short roll passing, all of that stuff. Like, no question. There's no denying that. Even like short roll floaters, like that's Oso's wheelhouse. Like, that's what he's great at. How close can Johni actually get to that? Like, can the mid-post passing translate to short roll passing? And then how much of a floor spacer is he actually? Because if he's a real floor spacer, that changes the dynamic of everything. If he's not that much of a floor spacer, then his offense isn't nearly as intriguing as Oso's is. Because, Oso can't space the floor, but if Johni can't either, Oso's way better at all the other stuff. And like a real impactful offensive rebounder, I think has a little more explosion and twitch. And so then that makes the defensive gap not that much compared if Broome can't really shoot it.
And Oso is like fairly switchable on defense. Like there is like some real switchability there, like can go out and guard a couple of slides against like real point guards, at least at the college level. So I'm I have Oso ahead of Johni Broome. Like I'm not going to sit here and say like I have Johni Broome ahead of Oso Ighodaro. I don't. But I thought it was an interesting comparison point because nobody has really brought up Johni Broome all that often. And we're all like, probably because of us in some respect, excited about Oso as an NBA player, and trying to like compare and contrast like different players in different tiers, I think is often a bit interesting.
No, I thought it was awesome. Like, I need more of that in terms of, because it's one thing I'm not great at is I kind of put my list together and my order and I write my scouts, and then it's like, okay, well now I really need to start comparing guys. Like, why do I have this guy over this guy? And it's good because then I figure out, okay, what do I actually like about Oso? What do I actually like about Broome and those type of things? And so it was interesting, like to find out they're essentially the same age as well. Like, I think their birthdays are like 5 days apart or something like that on top of everything else. So it was a great comparison and a great just like thought process and think study of, why do I like these guys? How are they valued by NBA teams? What makes one better than the other? What needs to click for one or the other to make them, make them better?
All right. That's all I've got draft wise. Did you have any draft takes that you feel like you need to get off?
No, not at all. Like, we're getting ready to go watch Cody Williams as soon as we shut this down. Neat Clifford, I think, did well for himself last night, and
that's a
is
great
going to
call.
he's going to have some more chances as well. I'm really excited to see Kentucky, Creighton, Duke, like which player for each of those teams pops off. I talked about Kwame Evans Jr. versus Colin Murray Boyles in that matchup. I think Arizona's a team. I haven't watched enough. I want to see Larson. I want to watch some more Keyshawn Johnson, and then potentially for future drafts, KJ Lewis and Krivas. So Arizona's a team I really want to watch moving in the tournament.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch Arizona as well. I'm excited to watch all these games that will be coming tomorrow, the next day, etc. I think we should. I mean, like, maybe we'll talk Neat Clifford over the weekend.
Yeah,
because they're going to play again.
Yeah.
So, we'll do that again. But Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, so at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, Pistons, NBA draft, anything I put out, I tweet about it, so you can check it out there. Doing NBA draft scouting reports over on Substack, so go check those out. And then if you want to listen to Pistons content, the Pistons Pulse with Mari Sankofa. Otherwise, here on Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. I wrote this week. I did a mock draft that went up yesterday. Go read, go take a look at it. I saw a bunch of people looked at it. It's great. Kind of where teams are on these prospects right now. I also did a breakdown of a bunch of mid-major players that will be potentially reaching a starring role in the NCAA tournament this year. It's one of my favorite things to write every year. I really enjoy diving into guys like Tucker DeVries, Chor, Donovan Dent, my beloved Donovan Dent, who is just truly one of my favorite players in college basketball. He's a genius playing point guard for New Mexico. Go read that. And then transfer rankings are what I'm working on right now and trying to keep up with the draft guide. So you'll get all that coverage and more coming up soon at The Athletic. So go over there. Shout out to Champs Paperhead. Shout out to Magic Mind. Go hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. It really helps the channel, helps support the show. Over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Over on your podcast feeds, hit the like button, hit the 5 stars button, whatever you're trying to do, go for it. But that's all we've got. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.